How do you stay consistent when you don't feel your best? Because one thing I realized during weeks 2 and 3 of 35 Her was that all of my goals were designed for the version of me that gets enough sleep, has plenty of energy, and feels motivated. The version of me that just wakes up ready to conquer the day. But what about those days when I don't feel that way? The days where I'm tired, the days where work takes the most out of me, the days where my body is just begging me to slow down. Because over the last 2 weeks, I learned that consistency isn't just about showing up 100% every day. It's about knowing what to do when you can. And once I stopped trying to force every day to look the same, I finally started building a system that I could actually stick to. So in the 2 weeks, I'm sharing what wasn't working, what I changed, and the lesson that completely shifted the way I think about discipline, recovery, and consistency. Hi, my name is Drayon Sabri, and 21 days ago, I started my 35 Her challenge. And just first to start off, the biggest thing that I want to talk about in this video is how do we operate at different levels, especially when we're trying to be consistent. I spent 3 weeks now trying to become better, but what I really didn't realize was I was just slowly becoming exhausted. And when you're entering journeys like this, everything does start to become redundant after a while. And sometimes you're trying to figure out what is the best way to continue, because we do got goals to accomplish. But first, let's talk about the wins between this week, because honestly, y'all, it's been exhausting. I made a hard list for myself. Like, I think the biggest thing that I haven't been able to accomplish is the 3 to 4 times strength training a week. Just because my body was just readjusting to the walking every day. But I think now I'm in a better place to where, okay, that's first and foremost. I've been exhausted. I've been in pain. I've entered my luteal phase. I haven't been recovering, and I haven't been getting enough sleep. And then y'all probably like, those don't sound like no wins. But the good part is it's more so acting as data for me, so that I can move forward and become a better version of myself. So I would say I did gain some wins just from learning, okay, what's actually exhausting me and how can I actually be more consistent with this. So number one, I would say, now in the mornings, I'm adding in doing my morning affirmations. I'm making sure my morning is quiet. I'm waking up earlier to make sure it starts off a little more slow, and also not allowing anything to just disrupt my morning or throw me off. Another thing I realized I needed to add in was a nighttime routine. So how am I winding down? I have a boyfriend, and sometimes we be chatting it up on the phone. And like as of last week, or maybe a little sooner than that, now I cut the phone call a little more early. I'm like, okay, I'm about to go to sleep. And even though I'm not going to sleep right away, I'm spending time, washing up, listening to something positive, writing in my journal, and, just taking that time to actually go to sleep and be with myself for a little while. So making sure I have also a quieter night routine, and also making sure I'm not on my phone scrolling at all, and using that time to actually just sit down and sit with myself. Stop looking at me. You not. Stop it. Oh my god. Alright, that's it. And it also helps me go to sleep earlier and helps me go to sleep with a more at peace mind. So I'm able to listen to everything a little more clearly. Another thing I've started doing is just kind of finding meals that I enjoy. Like, I think last week I ate the same thing every day. It was a form of like ground turkey, rice and kale, or, just very basic whole foods, but something that's enough to be consistent with. And I think also when we enter these journeys, we're not always thinking of, how boring it can get. It does get redundant, but it does also get to the point where it starts to feel good, because you're like, okay, I'm somebody who eats healthy. I am somebody who goes to the gym. I am somebody who walks 10K steps a day. I am someone who values my appearance. I am somebody who reflects on themselves because I'm journaling every night. I am somebody who prioritizes building their community because I'm posting short form content consistently. So those are the things that become way more valuable. But I think where I had to pivot and actually have to learn is that I wasn't failing the challenge. I was failing to recover. Like, the amount of times my ring recovery index was so low, my resting heart rate was a little high, it made me have to reevaluate. Like, you need to add in some buffers for one, for having flexibility, but two, also just a way to fully prioritize how am I going to maneuver the next day. without feeling tired and putting myself in a position where I'm straining myself instead of moving forward in the most best way. Y'all, it's been a struggle to say the least. But I guess this is where it kind of really got the hardest, because I realized that every single day I was expecting to have the same version of myself show up. And that was not the case, because one, I was neglecting recovery. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I'm entering my luteal phase, and all of those things combined subject to change how you show up for the day. So I cannot expect 100% performance when I'm operating at like 80 or 70%. And that was the issue I kept finding as I continued on with this journey. So for weeks 2 and week 3, I kept posting even the short form videos, and I realized a common theme. It was either I was coming from a place where I'm just tired, a place where I'm just sore, a place where, you know, I just don't feel good overall. And as much as I'm wanting to check things off the list every single day. And oh, just to give a reminder, my to-do list for on a daily basis includes doing 10K steps, doing strength training 3 to 4 times a week, no takeout, making sure I'm leaning more towards whole foods, doing my makeup before work, posting on YouTube weekly, and then also nighttime journaling daily. And that doesn't include the editing I'm doing every single day. That doesn't include the sometimes having to come home and cook. That doesn't include my job, like I work a full-time job as an engineer. So there's so many different layers to accomplish in a day. And I realized I was not feeling the same way every day. I realized like sometimes accomplishing these things on my list, I'm operating from a place where I am at the point where I don't really too much feel like it, but I understand with discipline, it's not about how you feel. I'm like, bump your mood, follow the plan. And that's kind of how I'm operating. But I also need to remember your body needs recovery. Your body needs more sleep. And because when you don't lean into having a rest day or an active rest day, what happens is you actually slow down progress. And I have my Oura ring, and there's such a ripple effect of everything that's happening, because some days I'm staying up later just to accomplish the 10,000 steps. And that's where I'm like, okay, I need to aim for something that's more sustainable instead of worrying more so about, because that's where the real consistency comes in. How do you operate on the days that you don't feel like your best? And we have to make sure we make a contingency plan for those days. So I have my green days, my yellow days, and my red days. And the green days are the days you got your most amount of sleep, your body's recovered, you're feeling very motivated, energized. And then you have your yellow days where maybe you didn't get enough sleep, but you feel functional, but not your absolute best, but you're still functional. And then the red days where it's like, okay, my body is in pain, I don't feel good at all, and I have to take into account that I'm not going to be in the same operating mode. Because what happens to your goals when you're only designing them for your absolute best day instead of just the regular day-to-day. And you know, because I was struggling on these days, I started implementing more, adding more to my routine, because it started to feel like, okay, I'm just doing a checklist every day, but there's no regimen. Like, for example, me getting my 10K steps in a day. Some days that looks like waking up early and walking, then walking during my lunch break, and then coming home and walking. And every single day, the way I get the 10K steps is not the same. So that's not necessarily routine. That's just a habit that I'm trying to get across. So then we have the, girl, what are you? Come on, get up. My workout, my strength training routines, they don't look the same every day. I remember one time doing a strength training day, and I remember having to stop because my body physically could not take it. I tried to do a squat and everything just started hurting. So I was like, what can I start putting in place? And it just got to the point where I'm expecting to work out. And some things are becoming non-negotiables of the day, but then some things are like, okay, how am I going to manage this? And that's where stress comes in. And that's where I realized I was doing myself a disservice. Like, okay, so now I'm like, how can I start introducing more sustainable things? And that's when I started implementing a morning routine. That's where I'm, you know, cutting off the phone time at a certain point at night and doing morning affirmations. So when I wake up, you know, first thing I'm listening to is morning affirmations, not on my phone. And those are certain things I can have because those are become part of a routine instead of just, okay, what am I doing today? It's leaving very little room for, it starts removing the spontaneity as I start building routines. So I am learning a lot during this challenge. I do plan on redoing this after I complete this first 35 days, because overall my goals were to enhance my health, my appearance, and also build my community here on YouTube. And while all of those things are happening slowly but surely, I also have to be understanding that I also need to take care of me so that I can show up the best to accomplish all of these goals for sure. Same with the day I was at the gym, you know, that required me getting a little more sleep throughout the week. That requires me doing more stretching throughout the week. And that way it all starts compiling into feeling good overall. But yeah, I don't need motivation. I just need a system that works on the good and bad days. And so that way I'm not overexerting myself, but I'm also not putting any extra pressure on my body. And becoming her isn't about becoming someone new. Sometimes it's just about learning how to show up for yourself consistently through the good and the bad days, because every day is not the same and we have to account for that. And I still plan on showing up consistently. Again, my name is Dre'Yon Sabree, and everything isn't going to be the same every day. So remember, take into account for those days that you don't feel your best, and drop in the comments a pink heart so I can know that you made it to the end of the video. And also like, comment, and subscribe to continue to see parts of this journey and how I grow.